Okay. Hello everyone. It's Monday. Miniature Monday.
Okay.
Bit of delay on that.
It's Monday.
Jeez. Alright. Today we are finishing up the Hill Giant that I've been working on. I was working on last week. So we're going to finish up the leathers. Do some of the wood grain here on the club. He's got some ropes here. And then we're going to finish up the base. So not too much more to do on him. So we're going to finish him up and then probably start on some other projects. So let's get to it. Starting a little bit early today because I just could not wait the extra 5 minutes. So let's do it. On the leather, we started with ProAcryl, from Monument Hobbies, mahogany. Now we're, and we started with a mahogany base coat, a Agrat's Earthshade wash from Citadel Games Workshop, and we started adding some highlights with mahogany. Now we're going to start adding some burnt sienna. Excuse me. And then continue that on with some burnt orange to get the nice red leather. And then we're going to add some yellow ochre to that, to the burnt orange for some final highlights. So it's going to be some texture leather, so a lot of some stippling. So we'll go ahead and we'll set him aside for the moment. Start applying our paint onto our palette. Burnt orange. Yellow ochre. A bit too much on that, but that's okay. Alright, let's get our brush here. Find the one I want to use. A couple different ones here. Alright, so let's zoom in a bit. Sure, I'm all set up here. Alright. I am totally unorganized this morning. Afternoon. That's what happens when I start early. I'm unorganized. Alright, got our magnifying glasses here. As you get older, your eyesight goes. Hard to see those. Get better detail vision here. Alright. So I just want a nice point. Just start doing little slashes. The burnt orange really starts to show. The burnt sienna really starts to show on here. So just random little marks, little dashes like this. It's always good to look at some reference pictures. If you're not sure. We're painting we're painting our miniatures to look realistic, so it's best to take from reality. Even though this is in a fantasy setting, it's still, there's no big hill giants walking around, but a lot of the material on them, like the leather, the wood, even skin and fur, that's all taken from real life, so look at real life references. So just some small, some longer. You can even do some dots. And we'll rotate them around. Do this upper portion here. Just going both sides. Get the light on here a bit better. Just checking to make sure it's coming up all right. Looks good. All right. Just rotating the club around so I can get underneath here. So it's just little hash marks, little dots. Nothing too fancy. Alright, so now we'll work on his wristband here. Doesn't take much. You just start seeing the detail and the highlights with this next color. So we'll go ahead and work on this one. You want to make sure that your paint is flowing well off the brush. Not too thin, but not too thick type of thing. So just random little dots and dashes. Concentrating more near the edges here. Got a little strap right in there. Little ties that tie it together. So I'm concentrating more the highlight towards out here compared to in the shadow. I still want to add some of this color in here, but more highlights will be out here. And going back over with the same color, you just build up that opacity, building up the layers, the brightness. More of a highlight with the same color. Alright, so now we'll work on his belt here. So it looks like it's just strips of leather, so we have that darkness. And come back with a dark brown to deepen that in. The liner, the black, dark brown liner. Not sure if the paint's coming off or not. I'll have to touch that up with some of the skin. It's got dust on them. This is just a soft bristle makeup brush, foundation brush. Got it up at Walmart for about $2 or so. It's great for dusting off the miniature. So if it's sitting on your shelf for a while, between waiting to be painted, you want to make sure that you give it a good dusting. Brush, dust off all that dust particles and such, so you have a clean surface to paint on. Because if you paint on the dust, then that comes off and it chips. It ends up chipping because the paint's attached to the dust, not actual to the model. And also, don't be afraid to do, in between, if you're stopping for the day, to protect what you painted, give it a thin layer of varnish. That'll help protect it. Brush it on or use an airbrush. Especially if you do a lot of glazing. Those are very thin lines, and they can, even after they're dry, you don't want to take the chance of wiping them off with your fingers. So using a varnish over it in between. Hello there! I can't see your name, hold on a second. Gorgot Butsy. Hopefully I pronounced that right. How you doing today? Glad you could stop by. And working on Hill Giant from Reaper Miniatures. Hopefully be able to finish them up today. Just a few more little things. Thanks. Yeah, he's turning out really good. I really like how he's coming out. So we're gonna finish up the leathers on them, the leather bands, and the wood on the club, and then finish, some other details and do the base. So it's not a whole lot more to do. Feel free to ask any questions on miniature painting or just in general what I'm doing. I am happy to help. Hope you are having a good day on this Monday. It's always a good day when you paint, so I try to paint every day, so every day is a good day. Alright, so just doing stippling type of technique where I'm just doing little dashes and dots to show the texture on the base. I mean on the leather. Alright. So we're done with that layer. And you can kind of see it's starting to show. So now we'll go with the burnt orange here. I don't want too much water in this. I want it somewhat thicker. So just dabbing it on my paper towel here to soak up any excess water. And we're just doing the same thing, but just smaller dots and dashes, more towards the edges and where the highlights are, concentrate more where the highlights will be. I'm in America. I'm in Minnesota. So south of you. I sound Canadian. That's the first. That's the first time I've That's funny. I'll take that. I'll take that compliment. Yeah, sure. Originally, I'm from Arizona, so I had that southern, I don't know, western, and I lived in Florida for a while, and then I live up here in Minnesota. Been living here for about, oh geez, almost 16 years. Thank you. One day I hope to visit Canada. So I mean, we're so close. Be really fun. Oh yeah, yeah. I definitely, my family and I, we definitely would love to do it. So. Alright, so just working around the leather. Sweet, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, that's it. We'll just pack up and we'll move. Because you say so. You'll fit in. So we're on our way. Sweet. All right. I got my cup. Let's go. Not sure if my wife is listening in. We're going to Canada. We've been welcomed. So I'm concentrating more to where the light's going to catch it. So if you look at it from above, so I'm concentrating more on this section and here than I will lower down with this highlight. So now we're getting into the brighter highlights, and we want to keep, just kind of fade it, working down towards the shadows, but just fading it out. And then just concentrating more up here. In a lot of cases I use my light source. It's roughly from top down for gaming miniatures, and or not a complete 12 o'clock, but roughly within that 12, 1 or 11 o'clock. So around this point is where it's going to be brighter compared to down here. We also want the face and the head to be a little bit brighter because that's the center point. Oh, thank you. I've been painting about 30 years, so I'm an old school painter. I'm a full-time commission painter, which I've been doing for the last 4 years as full-timer. I was doing it part-time for the last, probably 15 or so years. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think I've learned a few tips and tricks through the ages. So I'm more than happy to share and answer questions if you're having difficulties with a certain thing. So we want to keep it brighter near the top, and because when you look at a model in general, people focus in on the face. So you want that to have more highlight, more detail than, say, his feet. You're welcome. So, like I said, we're concentrating more highlights at the top than we are on the bottom. And the best way to figure that out is using your lamps that you paint on, and say that's your light source. So, and you can adjust it to see, it's like, okay, well, considering his head is lower down, we still want some brighter highlights up on the top of here, but down here, down his shoulders, and then this part right here, his face. Now, if he was holding something down here, let's say a victim, and that or something that he's about to hit with the club, we could add that. We can add a little bit more highlight to that because that's part of the scene. And I could have added that in when I made the base. This is I made the base. The model doesn't come with this type of base. This is what I made, and this is easy. This is just a cork and some tree bark and sand and gravel, just glued on. So the best way to figure out where your lights are is, just look at on it on your lamps. I have 2 lamps at roughly 1 or 2, 2 o'clock and like 10 o'clock, shining down. So I use that light source to figure out where I want the highlights at. So it's a great tip to use. Also, when I prime and get them all prepped up, I do that kind of zenithal highlighting where I prime in black or a dark color, and then what I did with this is I primed it in black, and then from like a top source down, and then kind of at a 45-degree angle, I use a white ink, artist ink, Dowler Rowley white ink. Shoots really well through the airbrush, just like all inks. So I can concentrate where I want it to be brighter. So I can put over transparent layers. Hey Haku, how you doing? Oh, no problem. I enjoy answering questions. Yeah, no problem. Uh, I can apply glazes like transparent paint, like watercolors, over, and it will still have these highlights that shining through it, so it's like a filter. Or even if I start applying thin layers of paint, it's still going to be brighter up here. The color's going to shine through brighter because of the white compared to underneath with the black. So this way I can figure out where I want brighter colors. I have little mushrooms here on the base. These are cave squids for Warhammer, and they're cave dwelling creatures. And I'm going to have like fluorescent glowing mushrooms. So I use my airbrush to concentrate more white on this and kind of like shine it up, and I use that directional with the airbrush shooting up, so it's kind of shining up on there. So it's showing all, already I have an idea in this gray scale of how the model will look. I'll just need to add color. I just need to color it in. Yeah, I'm just waiting to hear back from him, Haku, and I'll let you know. And I'll get those out to you as soon as possible. So, all right. So we're still working. We're working on this Hill Giant that I was working on Friday. So we're just doing some texture paints like I did on. I put him. There he is. I think I was doing this on Wednesday. Was Star-Lord? Haku, you were here on Wednesday, right? I was working on him, right? Was that on Wednesday? I know it was like last week. Every day, all the days are like shining or blending together, so it's kind of hard. He's got kind of a shine because I did a varnish on him to protect him for my client, and he's a little bit shiny, so I need to do another coat so he's not so shiny. But you can kind of see the texturing in there, hopefully, if it shows up. There we go. So same idea I was doing with him. I don't always do a varnish because it tends to be too glossy, even though if it's a matte. A website? What are you talking about that? You're scared that it's not a website? What we're talking about in email? Is that what you're talking about, Haku? No, no. No, it's not a website. He's a good friend of mine. I've done a lot of work for him. He did a lot of trades, and then he'd like either resell them. So that's basically what it is. And he stopped doing that. It started taking too much of his free time. He was doing it in his free time. So he did a huge sale about a month ago to get rid of the rest of his stock. Just saying. Yeah, he's asked me if I wanted stuff. I was like, no, can't afford it. I was, For that Dread Saurian, I was very tempted to pick it up myself, but I was like, no, no. Alright, so just going around and just picking up the brighter points with this burnt orange, which is a nice orangish brown color. And I'm thinking because he's got a leather cuff and then he's got another piece of cloth here, I'll paint that kind of like a dark gray. Or, you know, bluish gray to kind of very similar in tone to this, maybe a little bit darker. No, when I send it out to you, I'll have insurance and all that stuff, so don't worry. I've mailed painted miniatures as far as to Japan from America, and I've had no issues. So. He's a boomer. But yeah, with my commission work, it's not all local. I've had overseas, international, and in the U.S. and up in Canada. So I know how to pack. And I used to work. I used to work shipping and receiving for a company that made plastic tubing for medical uses, very fragile and material. And I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. I've mailed out models. This won't be a problem. So. Yeah, my stuff, when I mail it out, it's not going anywhere. It's not just wrapped in plastic, it's wrapped in foam, wrapped in bubble wrap. The box is lined with foam and bubble wrap. It's quite secured. My wife, she does websites. She actually she did mine, and very quite pleased with it. So yeah, my friend, he just got out of doing it. He does it every once in a while. He was what he's getting rid of is the leftovers, basically, of what he didn't need that he traded for an army that I'm painting for him. So thank you. Yeah, he's turned out really good. I really like him. I was working on him on Friday. So if you have a chance, definitely check out the video down below. The VOD. Gotta learn all these techniques, all these technical terms. Alright, so now we're going to add some yellow ochre to the burnt orange. Because if you look at leather, especially reddish leather, when it cracks and you know, at the points where it's cracked and folded, it's got that yellowish hint. So very similar to that. So I just do roughly about a 1-to-1. I just keep adding colors till I get to a color I'm happy with. That's not too far from the original, because this right here, it's quite a jump. I like to do a mid-tone as I build up my layers. It really is easy. It's not that hard. And I try to explain it. You know, I don't use really any fancy terms. It's, you know, that's not how I teach. It's not how I show. It's not how I learned. I tried to, I learned by reading magazines and step-by-step articles and just trial and error. And thank God we're in an age of where we can do these videos and live streaming for this type of stuff. It makes it so much easier. But yeah, it's really easy to do. I mean, painting is not that hard. You got to get over that, oh my God, I can't do it. Yes, you can. You know, just take the leap and do it. It's not that hard. Yes, I base coated it. My darkest red color, reddish brown mahogany. And no, that's not it. That's not it. Where is it? Yeah. And then I used a dark shade, dark brown shade, Adrat's Earth Shade, to wash over it. And that just is very thin paint, and it just runs into the recesses and just darkens it. And then I started building up the highlights with lighter colors, going closer and closer to the edge. So when you're highlighting, let's get a piece of paper here. When you're highlighting, here, let's get some darker color here. I always explain it as a pyramid or a house, however you want to do it. Because the models, even on rounded areas, it's got that point. So if you think of a pyramid coming up to a point, you're building up smaller and smaller the layers, building up those highlights. So you start with a, here, we'll zoom in on this. It's gonna kind of throw off the color a bit, but you'll still see the difference here. It's just because it's white. Camera doesn't care for white. So I start with a dark base coat, and then my highlights I get progressively lighter and smaller. Move that kind of ran in the other color. So the water, the paint is thin, so it's flowing. So that's what I'm trying to do. And it's not showing very well. Is building up those layers. That didn't work quite as that I was planning. We'll try it here. Nope. I'll get this. All else fails, use your thumb. So we start with a dark color. progressively get lighter and smaller as we move up the area. That's paint's too thin. It's just not wanting to work for me. Tried. So you can see here, even on the biceps and stuff, like right here I have a darker color to mid-tone to bright. And it's the same with rounded areas, is instead of you're coming to a point, you're coming to the center point of the muscle. You know, so you're building up to the center of the circle. I'm guessing I think it's circumference is the technical term. And you want to just slowly build up, you know, from dark to light. See if I have another model around here that I can show. I'll work on that. Oh, consistency of highlights. You want it to have enough water in it that it's damp to flow nice and smooth off your brush. This is why I use my thumb here to check the consistency and just, you know, kind of do a practice run with the brush. Also, that there's enough water in here just from cleaning. You know, I dab it off on my paper towel and then grab the paint. And there's enough moisture in here that it won't overload. And I can check that consistency. If it's too much, then I'll dab it more. Sometimes you'll get little droplets of water here on your ferrule. I always, you know, you want to wash those. You want to wipe that off, because if it's, as you're painting, your brush is downwards, and that bubble, that droplet of water will come into the brush, and it'll flood. It'll just soak it all up and just flow the water all over the place. Also, doing this to seeing the consistency, it does soak up some of that excess water. So that's another tip. So then when you're done with your painting session, you'll have a wonderful, you know, if you're doing a lot of different colors, you'll have a wonderful thumb art. So this is that roughly the final highlight here. I might add some more yellow ochre if I think it needs it in certain areas, but I'm pretty happy with that. So now you can really see if I was screwing around with the camera. Come on, focus. There we go. That helps it to pop more. I don't want to go too far into the yellow, because I'm going to use that same. I'm going to go brighter yellow tone, yellow brown, with the rope that's holding his wristband there. So down underneath here, I'm still going to add a little bit. That's too much. See, and it's wet enough. If I don't like what I applied, I can quickly erase it with my finger or with another damp brush. Thank you. Yeah, so I've used this technique before, but more recently I'm starting to use it more often. I like the adding that texture. It just makes it so much more. So I'll add it here on the straps on his club. So just getting smaller and smaller, and take each area separately, you know, your highlights and stuff. Here, let me switch over. Through OBS, it's like really throwing off my... Yeah, there we go. Okay. Through OBS, it's kind of a little bit darker. So I just want to make sure that it is showing up well. It's fun to paint like this because you don't have to be so precise. You're just doing little random dots and dashes. When you're already painting in that area, instead of just doing a straight line, it looks better. Oh, but I try to stay in focus here. So remove some of this stuff out of my way. Sometimes the camera just doesn't know what to focus in on. There we go. It's wanting to keep focusing in on the table. It's like, no. You can use the same type of, I like to call it texture highlighting. Pretty much on anything, even on skin. You know, add like wrinkles and such. Alright, so it's a little too bright on one side, not on the other. So it's a lot of going back and forth. If it's too bright, go back with your previous layer. You know, go back in. Alrighty. Also from this position I can see where I want to apply the highlights, you know, looking roughly top down or at an angle. So I can see that right here is where I want the highlights, but not back here. And it's great with the camera because I can see I can see from a different vantage point. You can easily go overboard with this, so you want to find that nice happy medium. And just like with anything, it takes practice and patience. Alright, so let's kind of tilt him and look at his belt here. see. So just little touch-ups here and there. Finish off the look. And here you can really see the texture where it's, you know, how I'm doing just little dashes and dots. Yeah, we'll get here on his ankle straps. So now I'm just doing a quick little overview, make sure I got all the areas I wanted. All right. Do a little bit of touch up here on the bone. There we go. Okay. Now, let's work on the wood texture. And that was a base coat of dark umber. It's a nice dark brown color. Washed with the Agrat's Earthshade, and then we're going to start building up the highlights with this dark golden brown. And then add some golden brown to that. It's a nice yellowish brown tone. A little bit lighter than the yellow ochre. Very similar to almost like a khaki. Then we'll add some ivory into it. So we still have a relatively dark, and then we're going to kind of do in between mixtures because that's a big jump between the three. But if you do like a mid-tone of 1 and 1 and then a mid-tone of this, then it might look pretty bright with that ivory. Then we're going to do a saffron sepia, which is the yellowish brown wash. We're going to thin it down a little bit more so it just glazes over it, so it gives it that looks like wood. We'll see. We'll show. Alright. Pull down the wet palette. There's my dark golden brown. Very similar to if you use Citadel's Games Workshop. It's very similar to Steel Legion drab. It's got that kind of neutral yellowish brown tone. A golden brown nuts to it. Just showing it very bright yellow on the camera. Don't mess around with my. And we got a bright ivory, which is an off-white color. So now I'm going to my Winsor & Newton Series 7, number 1. It's got a nice fine point. These I keep for my fine details. You want to get nice. Follow the. This is well sculpted, which is really nice to show the wood grain. So basically, I'm just following the edges. So we're not doing straight lines, we're also doing that little random markings where I'm going like this. So still kind of doing that texture highlight where I'm just doing little dashes and bringing it down instead of a straight line. Because wood texture does not have straight lines. It's all irregular. So going about halfway of the color. So I want to keep that dark undercoat. To get a nice fine point, as you drag your brush, you twist it. And you don't need Winsor & Newton, as long as you have just a good brush that has a nice fine point. Works really well for this. This first highlight is still pretty dark, but it's necessary because I don't want to do a jump to the bright yellow brown. That golden brown. Actually, I don't think I will need to do in between because it's so small, the areas. So you can start to see the texture showing up here. It'll really start to pop when I add the next brighter color. So the Reaper models are very well. Here, I'll move my hand out of the way. Maybe it's camera's throwing the light off with my hand behind it. Reaper models have some great detail on it. So they're really fun models to paint. And very reasonably priced too. It's especially the bones. Okay, we want to focus on this. I have to figure out why the camera is not wanting to focus in. I guess I will keep my hand there. So once again, if you're not sure where to put the highlights, use your lamps. Also, check photo references. Yeah, I think we will make this a little bit brighter, so it's not so, because the model itself has a lot of earthy tones, browns, reds. Like the skin, he's very tan, and the leather itself kind of sticks as close to it. That's why I did the pelt in a lighter blue to offset the red. I think we'll do this a little bit more, a little bit brighter. That'll offset, make it stand out. Not too much like the bone here. Usually when I come into painting a project, I have, I might not always start the project with an idea of how I want to do it. So while I'm just starting throwing paint down, that's when it starts to come together, and then it constantly changes throughout the process. Just kind of going with the flow with how things go. Flow with how things go. On commissions, it's usually, I ask the client, well, what colors do you want? And for the most part, which is is they say, oh, just do what you feel right. Paint it how you want. Unless it's a specific type of army, like a Space Marine chapter, they have certain colors. Where they say, use the bots art as reference. Okay. They give me pretty much all freedom, so it's really nice. Well, they say I want this color, and at least this color for this certain thing. Painted a dark elf. That dark elf character. He wanted it the bluish purple skin tone of a drow dark elf, and then the dagger had it had green glow. Other than that, I can do whatever. And I did that on stream, and it was nice that he was in chat, so I could bounce off ideas. It's like, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And it turned out really good. So it was really cool, and he was giving me more backstory of the character. So whenever I do characters for role playing, I always ask. I was like, okay, what's the backstory of this model? I mean, of this character. Why is he or she like this? Each model tells a story, and we need to find that story and bring it out with the paint job, just adding color to the model. It already has a story as a model, sculpted model. The sculptor did that. And us as painters, we're just continuing that story and adding color to it. Adding our own little bit to it. Concentrating this more towards the edge here. Alright. Now I rotate it a bit. I kind of want to add that highlight color a little bit further down here. I didn't quite go far enough down. And same over here. At 1 o'clock. Alright. So now we're going to add some of this golden brown. Yeah, there we go. Into our dark golden brown to get a mid-tone. It's much nicer. It's not as bright. So I start doing the same thing. Just very thin lines, more selective of where we're putting the highlights. It's going to be a little bit brighter on the inside right here. That'll be more paler in tone, lighter in tone, because that's the inside part of the tree. It's more whiter and brighter. Excuse me. So just same thing, just kind of a little random, not making the straight lines going across it. We're doing that little, picking it up and laying it back down the brush, just to add some more texture, visual appeal to the bark. This is when it starts to pop more. And more in here. We want that to be much lighter to show the, because this is the outer bark. We want the inner bark to be much lighter and brighter, more towards a cream color. If you ever picked up a stick and broke it in half, see under the, or peel off the bark, you can see the under part of the tree or the branch is much lighter. Also, you can use the side of your brush to kind of get a broader area and just do the same movement. You get a few, you get a bunch in one swoop, then just one by one. My camera is not is giving me issues with focusing here. All right. We'll add a little bit more of that golden brown. Not quite pure golden brown, it's more like a 2-to-1. 2 golden brown, 2 parts golden brown to 1 part dark golden brown. And here we start doing very thin lines. More towards the edge. We don't want to, we're getting to the top of that pyramid sense. Don't worry, this part right here is going to be much lighter. I'll add more ivory into it, but we want to build up that color there. Sometimes you can get so focused on what part you're painting, you want to make, you might lose sight of how it looks in the broad, all over. So sometimes, always take a step back and look at it and see how it's looks as one piece. We're going to be adding more darker shadows in here in just a second, so that'll help break it up. Here. All right. So now we're going to go with pure golden brown. Start putting that on the inside of the broken stump. And we'll start adding ivory into that. It's crazy. I'm not doing anything different. You're seeing it live. So we're going to keep adding, pull that down. Keep adding this ivory into it and just making it brighter and brighter. I tend not to use a bright white for highlighting because it can start looking pastel, and I don't think this Hill Giant wants to be in pastels. So I use an ivory or off-white color for highlighting. There we go. Let's move this out of the way. Sorry, I'm off camera. I'm just taking a quick look, real close. So we'll just do a little bit more ivory on there. Alright, so now we're going to add some shading. To help deepen the shadows and break up all of this. So first off, we're going to add a thin layer of saffron sepia. Then in random sections, a very thin of this Magos purple. Adding the purple helps it look more natural instead of just using browns, because it's a yellow tint. Adding that purple, which is contrast, it's a nice contrast color to the yellow, and it gives more variety to it. And then the deep shadows, we'll add the Agrat's Earthshade. So we'll get our palette out here. Switch to my other brush. Give it a good shake. This is the saffron sepia, just adding a bit of water just to thin it a bit. I don't want it too strong. It's a rather thin paint as it is. So we're kind of, in a sense, staining the wood like you would on a wooden piece of furniture. You would add, like wood stain. So I'm pulling the paint, I'm pushing the paint down towards the shadows, like around his hand, underneath the straps here. Try to show it here. I'm also doing it at the base of the little bone spikes there. Kind of adding a little bit here on the straps just to add a little bit more color to them, to the shadows. Kind of smooth out some of those marks. So the shades and the contrast aren't, you know, you can use it for other techniques rather than just an all over. You can kind of like do spot shading where you just put it in certain areas. See here, I'm not wanting to do the whole piece this color. I just want it a little bit darker and in the shadows and in between the straps and the wood grain, just to help separate it. Also here around the hand. Some of the bigger cracks and crevices in the wood texture. It's so thin, it flows really well right in between and deep into the recesses and the shadows, texture. And a little bit more here to kind of help break up those two areas. They're very similar in tone, but having a dark line in between them helps separate it. And I don't like to use black in my shadows because that black is void of color, so it sucks out all the color, so it doesn't look natural. So using a very dark brown or a dark purple, dark blue works really well. Alright, I'm rotating this around a lot, so hold on a second. I'm also going to add some of this onto the bone right here that he's off out of camera, sorry about that. So around there, and just pushing it underneath to kind of outline it so it pops it up. All right. So we'll show off the. Okay. So now we're going to take this Magos purple contrast color. This is a great color. I like to use this. I used it on this face. Hello, Thrawn. How you doing? Thank you. I use this color also on his face. Darn camera wants to focus in on my palette. So around his nose, under his eyes, his lower lip, under his cheeks. So I use that, and then like the pink. I am doing good. How are you? So this color is pretty much already is quite thin. So just adding a little bit of water makes it quite, even more. So I want a glaze. I don't want a dark color. I just want it to tint the area so you can still see my skin underneath it, but it's got a hint of that purple compared to what's next to it. Yeah, there's nipples here. Basically over the, when I highlighted up the skin, I just used this Magos purple over the nipples, and it's just darkened them up. Yeah, he's got nipples. He's all man. So I'm just taking some of this Magos purple and just dabbing it randomly over the wood, just to give it a slight color shift, especially towards the shadows. Hopefully that's showing up. Yeah, it's just kind of just slightly changing the color. Some of that stuff from sepia is still kind of wet, which is fine because it just blends it together. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really liking how he's turning out. We're getting close to the finish line on him, so it's taken a few days because I just enjoying it so much. Adding more than what I planned, so no biggie. You can also do this on the leather. On any of your leather, add like a purplish glaze, just randomly going over it, and it just adds some variety and color. It's in that warm, or it's in that cool spectrum, so over the warmth of the red, it looks really nice, and especially with the yellow, it contrasts really nice. So having a contrast color in your shadows helps it to pop more. Or using the contrast color in the midst to highlight the color. So if I was doing purple, I might consider for some of the bright highlights adding a yellow hint to it. Yeah, I really wanted to make him look all nasty, all chipped and stuff, dirtied. Like right there, I like that. That's really cool. And his teeth too. Yeah, he's just a great model. He's just been so much fun. I have another Hill Giant that I painted. I don't have it here in my studio. I actually have it on display at my one of my local game stores downtown. So, but I definitely want to get some more of these models from Reaper Miniatures. They have some like female ones that I want to get. It'll be fun to paint. I have a big group of them. So some of this, the highlight with that yellow was a bit too harsh. So adding some of that purple over it tones it down a bit and blends it into the leather, into the area, so it looks more natural. It's not a bright highlight. And also painting it, darker purple with the brown, and just doing this with the lining in between and separating the two areas, like between his skin and the belt. Yes. Yes, doing makeup on females can be daunting. You have to be careful though, because you don't want to add a whole lot, because it's such a small area. If you do too much, it'll look all unnatural. But I found if you add a little bit more color, like on their cheeks, under their eyebrows, the top of the, right here, where it's, enough, and just like a bright color on the bottom lip. You don't want to do the top lip on any of your models. If you paint the top lip, it doesn't look natural. It looks like they have a big ring, like a reddish ring around their mouth. So you do the bottom lip a little bit brighter, because the bottom lip is usually a little bit more puffier and sticking out. And you can add a dark, I'm putting my finger in my mouth. You can put like let's say you wanted to do bright red lipstick. Do a kind of like a mid-tone red on the bottom lip, and if it's slightly open, the lips like him, if I wanted to do that, I would paint the bottom one with that dark red. Focus. and then just underneath, like I did on him, underneath the lip, and then add my highlights on the bottom lip, and add like a brighter red, and then maybe like a small white dot to show it glistening. Yeah, that's not always a good thing. Unless that's what you want. You never know. But yeah, I tend to paint the bottom, because when I first started, that's what I thought you did. You painted the whole lip. And I have a model that sits in my mind that I did for a friend, and I wish I could go back and redo it, because I seen the pictures afterwards, like, and then I learned afterwards, like, that's not how you do it. And someday, if he still has it, I would like to get him back. It's like, can I have those back and touch those up and make them look better for you? So it was like a good 20 years ago that I did them for him. But yeah, it looks like she has this big red oval for lips. And on makeup too, you know, for the eyes. It's very subtle. Just feet. Hello, just feet. They're proud feet. I'll have to get some female characters, and we'll paint up some makeup. I have some larger models that are female that have larger scale faces, so I'll have to do that. I'll have to dig them out and get them prepped up. Alright, so we're just putting some Adrat's Earthshade on our palette here. And we're using this and painting it down into the deep recesses. You know, around the fingers, just to separate the hand and the club from each other, and the same with the straps. And if I wanted to do darker, I could add, you know, do a darker brown, like the Wildwood contrast paint is really nice and dark, or add a bit of black into it if I wanted to go really dark. Otherwise, you can mix a dark purple into the brown for the dark shadows, or dark blue. So with this color, I'm kind of doing a lining where I'm going around and separating some of the areas from each other, like the hair on his arm to his skin, the leather cuff or armband to the arm, around these bone spikes, the leather strap, the straps from each other. Add some shadow into here. Because right here on the skin to his belt, there's not much definition line, because that was where you glued them together. So just adding a dark line in between, not quite black, but a dark brown works much better. If I were to use a black line, it would look very cartoony, and that's not the look I'm going for. If I was doing more like comic booky, anime type style, I could do that. I would use the black lining instead of a brown lining. Add some separation here on the hair. He's got a bit of, they actually sculpted eyebrows on him, which is really cool. They don't always do that. So I'll add some dark shadow underneath his nose because it's protruding out to show some shadow and to help separate that. Separating the armband and the hair on his forearm. Actually, I haven't painted. There's like 2 parts of leather here on his arm, and I'm going to paint that kind of a gray tone just to help separate it. So we'll just go ahead and wash that in the address shade. There's some leather like string or rope right in the back end of his armband that holds the strap together. Also do this between the belt and the fur loincloth. He's got some ropes here that we're just going to go ahead and darken it in, and we'll paint that up in just a minute. Alright, hold on a second. Turn off that AC. It's getting chilly in here. And using a wash or very thin down paint works really well because it flows nice and smooth in between the 2 areas. So you see how the strap right here and the fur, it kind of blends together. We want to separate those. That's why I'm doing this brown lining. So it gives it definition, it separates them, and it shows a bit of a shadow in between. And you can do this also in between his toes, between the toenails. So just letting it flow right in between them. Add some shading to his nipples there. And his underarm hair. You can add this, under more of the muscles that are larger and bulging out. Darken the shadows underneath his neck because it's an overhang. I'm off the camera there. It's an overhang, so it would be darker underneath it. Alright. know if I want to darken some of these bits of fur. Added different washes, some greens and browns on the fur to make it look matted and dirty. Also a bit of the that purple I added in there too. So I didn't want it to be too bright. I wanted it to look dirty. Adding some more of this dark shadow. Add some purple into it, and just kind of pushing that up underneath it to make it look dirty, and it's, you know, sweat stains almost. I'll talk to you in email. All right, Haku, I don't want to discuss that online. Yeah, when I'm done with my stream, I'll answer you. You know, we can continue it discussing in email. Alright, so just adding some more just randomness to the pelt. I wanted to make that look a little more dirtier, grungier. Alright, so I'm definitely liking that. Let's go ahead and paint the this little wristband here. And it's going to be really simple. We'll do it a neutral gray. So we'll start with the base coat of dark neutral gray, and then add bright neutral gray into it to build up the highlights. ProAcryl's Monument Hobbies paints. So you see it's a very, you know, bright, a dark to bright. So we're going to slowly add this into this to build up our highlights. And it's a small area, you know, just the edges on that, but that will help separate those areas. So I have a lot of browns on this model, so adding some grays into it, because he's a hill giant. He's a in nature, a lot of earthy tones, so adding some gray. All right. Yeah, before you send the money, make sure you send me your address so I can figure out shipping for you. Like I said, we can handle all that through email. Rock guts. Are those the ogres? Or are they, no, those are the trolls for the grots, right? The big trolls. Okay, yeah, I want to paint those too. Those are really cool. Yeah, the Troggoths, that's it. Yesterday I was doing some prepping up my squids. So they're prepped up for some coloring. I made added some more mushrooms to them. I want to make them a little more, you can see it right there. So I just added some more mushrooms to them. I'm not sure how, I'm kind of going back and forth on my color scheme. I want them different. I don't want to do the typical red. I kind of want to do more natural. Thank you. I want to do them a little bit more natural skin tone. Make them look like the Shriekers from the Tremors movies. You know, the ones with the feet and the teeth. That's what they remind me of. Yeah, making those mushrooms are really easy. It was extra putty, and all I did was put them in little balls, and then took a needle and then just poked holes in it. And then once it was dry, I drilled a hole and added a piece of wire into it. Very simple. Yeah, so I was thinking of doing it kind of very similar in the scheme of the Shriekers, and then have like blue luminescent mushrooms that kind of are the glowing, and do some glowing bits. So now I just got to figure out how I'm going to do it. So that's a cool idea. How am I going to do it? Yeah, I got the Loom Curse bot set, and so I'm painting the grots from that set. This is one of my favorite models. I'm looking forward to painting him, the Piper. He's so cool. Here you can see a little, another little shroom. And when I primed it in black, and then went on, over it with a white ink through the airbrush, so I can concentrate more, brighter up here, and then I want to have that luminescent glowing from the mushrooms. So I pointed the airbrush here, so it oversprayed on his claw, so it'll be a little bit brighter there. Yeah, I love this one. Some of the old, like the previous set had one. He has symbols that he's bashing, and they sculpted a bandage over his nose because they have big bulbous noses. So he smashed his nose, hitting the symbols. And I need to find that model because it's so hilarious. The one in this set, he doesn't have that. So maybe if I can do that and just putty it up, it's just so cool. I've always wanted to do a goblin army, and especially a big old squig army. So I'm looking forward to painting them. Yeah, and those new Trogoths are so cool. That's what really is like, oh, these are awesome. I wasn't a big fan of the old ones, but I love these new ones. The new ones are just so cool. And I like the idea of the new Giants army coming out. So that'd be fun. I have too many armies to do. I have a Sylvaneth army that I plan on doing. All the trees. I got a big army in a trade for my friend that doing the Sephirin army on. And that Loom Curse bots is really perfect because it had some more Sylvaneth armies, Sylvaneth models to go with that army. So that's the big one, and it was pre-painted, and the paint job looks really cool. But obviously I want to I was thinking different ways, maybe more of a dark Sylvaneth, where I seen this army online where the Sylvaneth, they were burnt trees, and they're all like charcoaled and burnt trees, but they have like an inner glow of fire, and it looked really cool and it looked really simple to do. So I was like, that's an idea. But also I kind of want to do a more colorful one because my favorite season is autumn, and kind of doing that with the autumn colors. The dark Sylvaneth looked very grim and how like Tim Burton. Oh, there's an idea. Do it like that. Do it kind of like a Tim Burton Nightmare Before Christmas style. Ooh, there we go. That would be cool. All right, I'm getting all the ideas for it. I think I'm going to do that. We'll make it a Tim Burton. Ah, yeah. So I got a bunch of skeletons I can add to it too. And ghosts. There we go. Light bulb, bing. I play with my daughter. She has a large death army led by Nagash, the supreme lord of the undead. And right now I'm 1-5 against her. She keeps kicking my butt. So, which is fine. We have a good time. Maybe I can convince her we play another game soon. So, yeah, we have a blast. She always wants to have so many models on it. The last game we played was a very small one, and she still kicked my butt. She wasn't doing good for a while. Her dice were not wanting to cooperate, and I was like, oh, I've got a chance now. Her dice aren't wanting to play. But she got me. She won the scenario. We did a scenario game where it was a necromancer having to get a what was it? Discovered a magical artifact in a graveyard, and she had to get the artifact and get off the board before she got killed. And she gets to the artifact, and then so it's like, okay, we'll roll it. You need to get, to start off, you need to get a sets. And sure enough, she gets the sets right off. So she got the artifact and then booked it off the board right away. And then next turn, like the next 2 turns, she booked it. And to cover her escape, she raised more skeletons right in front of my line, so I couldn't stop her. I'm like, you're good. So. Yeah. Yeah, I like the Stormcast too. And I'm not too crazy about the gold, how they show all over, but I really like the look of them and the style of them. And I was reading more of the background, and there's one that they're stationed in an area where they're constantly fighting death. It's like an ever they can't get rid of the enemy because they're constantly coming, reinforced. So they're more of a small band of brothers and battle sisters and battle brothers fighting this ongoing battle. And with the Stormcast, when they die, because they're like demigods, they come back to life after they're dead. They're not completely gone. And so in this area, they've died so many times, and coming back, they're almost like the undead themselves. They're very dark and deep and everything. So it's a really cool story behind them. Yeah, Zephyron and the Stormcast can. The new Gloomspire stuff is kind of pricey for what you get, which I thought was crazy. But with the Stormcast, you don't need a whole lot to have a great force. You can have a small batch of them, which I really like, because the point wise, you don't need a whole lot of them, because like each model is high in price. All right, so I'm just starting to add my bright natural gray into my dark natural gray to get kind of a mid-tone here, and just working this, you know, just right on the edge. And I forgot to grab the phone before my stream, so you know it's so you know this stream is real, it's live, and obviously it's someone that we don't want to talk to because we're not answering it in the other room. So I apologize for the phone. They'll give up soon enough. So here, instead of doing the little, you know, straight line, I'm starting to add, you know, which I kind of did right here. So add a little bit of lines here. Yeah, the Sephrons are really cool too. So that's my problem, is there's so many cool armies. And I like how they did it with Age of Sigmar, where you can ally with different ones. So you can have a Sephron / Stormcast army. So if you have like little bits of each, you can put them together because they're all part of the order. Yeah, and I'm pretty good about, you know, we hardly get any phone calls, and it's usually when we do is when we don't want to have the phone calls. So, I'm kind of, you know, adding these little hashed lines kind of makes it look like it's fur, and it's very similar in tone. So we'll just make it look like it's, you know, fur lining like on his ankles. Why not? Yeah, there's the new Warhammer 40,000 coming out. I'm not a big 40k fan. I've played it. When I worked for Games Workshop, I had to learn to play it. I'm more of a fantasy guy. I like the fantasy stuff. I do like the lore for 40k and the look, the grim darkness of it. And I played a few games of it. And I do like it. And I do like painting the models. I'm looking forward to the new one because I want to get the. I'll probably pick up the set and paint that on stream and show tutorials on how to paint what's in there. So, and probably after I paint it, I'll probably just sell it off. Because I have some other 40k stuff that I just wanted to paint, and I was like, well, I'm not going to play this game. I probably won't play this game, so I'll just sell off the pieces. Which I plan on doing with a lot of things that I've painted that I'm not going to need. I'm going to be having a shop web store on my web, you know, a store on my website, and sell those off like later this year as I build up stuff. Yeah, I really like the Necrons, you know, the Terminator can't stop. So I'm looking forward to painting those, and I kind of want to pick up some models now and play around with some, because I always wanted to paint them very, you know, just play around with weathering and rust and such on them. The new Giants coming out. It's a new faction, and I think they're basically like a mercenary army, where you can hire one to be in your army. I'm not sure if they're strictly, or you can have them as an army, and I believe they're that would be destruction. But if you had like a Stormcast army, you could hire a giant. Basically, pay the points for the giant and have the giant in your army. that's what I got from the little snippet on the website. They're coming out with a set where there's 3 different options, and these are like twice the size. Like they're huge. The scale of it compared to the normal giant. But yeah, that should be coming out probably later this month. It's now June. Yeah. And those will be a fun paint project. I just want to get 1 or 2 of them and just paint those up. Yeah, if you go to the community, the Warhammer community site, and scroll down through it, you'll see the announcement about the giants. It was at one of their actually, if you go to YouTube and go onto the Warhammer TV, or you just type in, giant army Warhammer Age of Sigmar giants, you'll see the announcement video. But yeah, those look really fun to do, and really great projects. And if you can have them in any army, I have a feeling that we'll have to do some conversion work and make a undead giant for my daughter's army. That'll be fun. So just adding more to that bright gray and just doing a little bit of lines here at the tips of this. Kind of make it look like it's fur. Which makes sense. It ties it in with the rest of it. We'll add some shading to darken it down, because this bright natural gray is very, very bright. Yeah, the sun's a behemoth. That's it. Very similar to the Imperial Guard, the Imperial Knights for 40K type of idea. And that would be a fun army. I think you would just need, like, depending on the points, like a handful of them. That would be fun to play. Just going in and destroying everything. I'm also looking forward to Warhammer Old World and what that's all going to be about. It looks like they're returning to the fantasy battle, but it's not going to be their main game, because Age of Sigmar is now their main fantasy game. It's going to be like a Forge World specialist type thing. So I'm wondering how they're going to do that. If it's epic, epic scale with a small, because they're saying returning to square bases. Yeah, probably. But I think what Warhammer Old World would be, I have a feeling it might be like an epic, like large battles. I don't think they're going to be returning to the fantasy. That would be the big twist. It would be nice if they went back to that regiment style. That was the game that I really enjoyed. It just got too expensive to play it before Age of Sigmar came out. Well, to be honest, any of the Games Workshop games can be expensive. But I like it that you have options now. You can play small little battles and slowly build up your army, and then play really big ones. Alright, I was looking for Adret's shade here. So I need to put some of that more on my palette. Yeah, an expensive Games Workshop game. I mean, if you were to buy one of the starter sets, even now they're doing like the smaller starter sets, you can just play that. But, there's so many cool stuff you want to add on to it. I like it now that you don't need to buy the big box set. to get the rules. The rules are smaller, because like those little sets. For example, oops, this set, the First Strike starter set, is like, I think, $40 retail. I mean, if game stores have discounts, it's usually like 10 or 15%. And this is actually a really nice set. You get, you can play small little battles with just this to kind of get that itch. So I mean, you get your Space Marines and you get your Nurdles. So, and then the bots inside it is a terrain, and you got the gaming mat, and they have this for Age of Sigmar too. And I thought those were really great. And if you want to get those bigger sets, you can. There's like the 3 different sets. There was the big main one, which I think was like 150, but you get a lot of stuff in that, and you get like the full book. Because with that one, you don't get just getting started rules. You have the full rules, and then models, and you're ready to go. And then there's like a medium one that was like $80 or something. So just like right out of the box, you're able to play, which I think is really neat, and I'm glad that they're doing that more and more. So we're going to add some Adrat's Earthshade onto what I just painted, just to kind of darken that up and dirty it up a bit. Yeah, the paint set model combos are really cool too. And overall, for what you get there, you do get somewhat of a deal. And if you shop online, you might be able to find some of the online stores have discounts, have sales. Your local game stores, they might have, if you're a member of, you join their membership, you get a discount. So there's one that I go, that's my main game store, and I'm a member of, a venture gamers club or something like that, and I get 10% off, so off any of my purchases. So it's really nice. All right, yeah, that definitely works. Yeah, he looks really cool. I really like him. This is not a commission or anything. This is just my own model that I picked up. I love Reaper miniatures. Just buying, just going in and spending. Talk about cheap price. Go in and spend, $20 or so, and just get like a handful of models just to play around with. All right, so we now have just some ropes and stuff here, and there's some leather straps here. Ropes are usually like yellow. I kind of want to do, I've been doing so much red and yellow on this. I'm tempted to do this part also in that gray, kind of just to break it up. All right. So we're going to start with a dark color, a dark base, blue black. My all-time favorite Games Workshop game is the Lord of the Rings, now under the name Middle-earth strategy battle game. That is my all-time favorite GW game, and I love it that it's back in popularity and you can get new stuff for it. I also love it that they haven't changed the rules too much. They've added things, but the core game itself is still the same. Alright, so we're going to use this blue-black. This is kind of like a bluish, dark blue. Yeah, it's definitely it's a fun game. I really enjoy it. I just enjoy painting the models too, so. Okay. Yeah, so this will separate really nicely between the two areas. You can have a gray rope, right? I think if I went the other way and did this color as the cuff. Screw it, we'll flip it. We're gonna flip this, and we'll paint the band this dark blue gray, and we'll paint the ropes kind of that yellowish tone. That way it helps separate it from the rest of the skin, because that red leather against that reddish tone, skin tone, that tan skin, it's too close together. There, that'll be better. It'll be similar in tone to the other portions of them. So we can do that. We can add the texture to make it look like it's fur. So we have this kind of like a pyramid triangular of color of this blue gray compared to the opposite triangular of the warmth. So it will look more visually appealing than just a big blob of red, brown tones. Alright, so we'll wait for that to dry a bit. Up there, and we'll start adding down here. So these little straps here will make this color. To make it like a very close, just a gray leather. It helps separate from the red and the yellow. And there's some bits back here. He's got some, and it's different in tone to the fur, so it's not going to be as zapped. And with that, I actually will use a black wash just to darken it. Where I put it. Actually, we'll use Black Templar contrast paint. I really like the contrast paints. They're a really nice addition to your toolbox of colors. Alright, so while that's drying, which looks like it's pretty, oh no, let it dry a little bit more. We'll start working on the base. going to take some of that dark neutral gray, like a charcoal gray almost. It's very dark. And we'll start dry brushing the rock area here. So I'm not quite, dragging it across, I'm just dabbing it. Doing it, just irregular texture with the brush. Stabbing it with it, just being very careful I don't get it on the skin. And just dragging it across the area so the paint picks it up. So we're going to have some stonework. Some of the rots that didn't glue right are coming off, which is fine. That's just after 2. Okay, we can finish this up. We're almost done with them. Some of the rots underneath here, the glue didn't, I needed to put more glue on them to hold them down. They're just falling apart. That's alright. That happens. So I'm going to add some of this, the bright warm gray for the stones, because it looks a little more like a stone compared to the bright neutral gray here. Kind of like an almost like an off-white-ish gray, like a dark off-whitish, bluish gray. Well, not quite blue. So I'm not cleaning my brush. I'm just from the previous color, because I'm dry brushing and kind of getting that mixture with that dark color already in the brush. And I'm just dabbing it on there. I'm going to use an old cheap brush. These craft brushes are perfect. Little synthetic brushes that you can pick up at any art store, craft store. They're great for applying base coats, primer, washes over large areas. Just beat them up. You get a big old bag of, I think, a dozen for a few bucks, so. For the majority of your brushes, you don't need big old fancy brushes. For the majority of your work, you can use cheap brushes for that. And you can use it for your detail stuff, as long as it has a good tip on it and you take care of your brushes by cleaning them. Easiest way to clean them after each session is run them under cool water and just using a if they're natural brushes like sable brushes. Just using some soap, some cheap soap, and just kind of work it in your hands. You can also get brush soap. This is Gentastic's Drunken Brush Goop from Monument Hobbies on creaturecaster.com. I love this. Is really good. There's Masterson bar soap that you can get. It's like a little yellowish brown tan tin, and it's just a soap that you work into the bristles and clean up the paint. But a good just a cheap shampoo for the natural hairs. Even the synthetics, you can clean them off really good. Cause this one's all beaten up. It's got paint all on it, down into the ferrule. That's why it's all all beaten up, and that's what I use these for. I use these cheap brushes for this type of work. I don't want to use my nice brushes on this. Add some more of that bright. I've knocked off a bunch of the little rots. Grab some more of that bright, warm gray. A little more selective of where I'm applying this on the edges. And even though it's like a bluish gray, it contrasts really well against the skin, but it's not, because I darkened this area on the pelt, that it's still different. Add some ivory, and even it still has some of that previous paint in there, so it's kind of mixing all together on the brush. So I'm getting random colors all over, which rots are like that, and I'll be adding some shading, different colors of thin glazes on it, just to, because rots aren't, stones aren't just one color with brighter on it. It's got a wide variety of colors. Look at reference material, go out and look at actual rots and trees and nature. Yeah, I knocked off a lot of the stones. That's okay. Alright, we'll do one more highlight with the ivory on the very edges here. Should have put a thin layer of glue over all this. That'll help seal it all down. Oh well. Alright. So now we're done with that. I'll go ahead and do a quick cleaning of this brush just to clean out some of that gray. We'll use that on the, because the rest of the area on the base will be kind of like the yellowish browns. So, you know, you want to have the base kind of similar in color scheme. You know, some similar colors as your model. This is why I like to completely do the base with the model on it, and instead of trying to add it on later. One, that avoids getting base material on the feet, but this, I see the, you know, how the whole model is going to be incorporated. So I'm going to add some yellow browns and stuff to the rest of the base, add some shading, and then we'll add some grass tufts and some little shrubs, some shrubbery to finish off that base. But let's go ahead and finish up these leather straps here. These gray leather straps. Oh, that's really dark. I should have thinned that. Right, so this is the Black Templar. We're going to add some water to it, so we want it thinner. It's really strong pigmented. The Black Templar would be great for black lining too. So, where the wildwood color. It's a very dark brown. Would be great for the brown lining. I don't like that, so we're going to add some of that Adrat's Earthshade in there. It's too stark of a black. I don't want it black. I want to have a dark brown. So I had some Adrat's Earthshade on my palette, so we just mixed the two. To get kind of a black brown, dark brown. We'll use this to kind of help separate this here. Some more. Alright, so on his club he's got some like studs, like metal studs. So gotta remember to do that. I'll paint those. Alright. So while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll go ahead and finish off the base. So using the same brush, I cleaned it off from the gray, but I want to make sure that it's nice and dry. There's no moisture whatsoever in it, because if it has some moisture and I dip it into the paint, even though I'm dipping the paint off of my wet palette, I don't want any moisture in my brush, because it won't dry brush. You want it dry. It won't brush on very well. It'll start to blend and excuse me, blend out and smooth out. And that's not the look I'm going for. So we'll take this dark golden brown that I used earlier on the wood. maybe. Trying to get this done in the stream and it's not going to work. Alright, I'm going to have to put a sealant over this. So probably won't be able to finish the base off today. So I'm just using some regular white scroll glue. Putting it onto my wet palette because I want to thin it. I just want a very thin consistency. And it's still got some paint in the brush, which is fine. It's actually picking up some from the palette. Oh well. Yeah. So I'm just going to paint this over these areas that the stones are coming off, just to kind of help seal it. We'll let that dry and then we can paint over it. This will help, seal it down, glue it down. I'll have to repaint that area the stuff came up here. Unfortunately, I'll have to let this fully dry before I can start painting over it, because a lot of these little rods start coming off. And when you use like tree bark and stuff, you want to add a layer of this, or even cork, cork tiles to make your basing. Glue it down and then do a thin layer of white glue, or PVA glue is what the technical term of it is called. Oh, like wiping off more of these rods here. That just helps seals it down. Even with the primer, I thought the primer would be enough to hold all these rods down, but some of them keep popping off. Alright. So I just need to wait for that to dry. Takes a while. So we'll finish up the rest of the model, and then I'll just finish the rest of the base off camera. So I gotta let that fully dry for a good hour at least, just to make sure it's all dry. So let's go ahead and finish up this the dark leather, and there's a rope right here. We'll paint. We'll start with a base coat of dark golden brown. And it's also getting close to lunchtime, so but we will finish this model on stream. Just got to finish up. We'll finish the model. The base won't be finished till later. So. Oops. So we'll let that dry real quick while we're doing some other stuff. So I got this black brown, I'm sorry, blue black as the base coat, so we're going to add a little bit of the bright neutral gray to help highlight it. And it won't take too much, just doing little lines here to show that it's has some texture. So same thing I did on the rest of the other leather. Just doing the same thing here. We'll zoom in a bit. Right, there we go. And we'll start applying highlights here. And this will cover up when I was base coating those ropes, I got some of that color on the gray, so I'll cover that up. So don't be worried if you're painting an area and you get some paint on another area that you haven't painted yet, because you will paint over it. But if you happen to get it on an area that you've already painted, don't fret. You can always paint over it and fix it. So the strings here that tie the belt together, and I forgot about this one back here, but it was already kind of dark, so I'll add some highlights on that. It's kind of hiding back here. Oops. And just like that, I got some blue on his arm. I just dampen my brush and kind of see if I can wash it off before it dries. Nope. Oh, I'm just touching up an area that I got some paint on. Thankfully it was down in the shadows, so I can just darken it up. I still see that blue. I'll have to go over it with a skin tone. Fix that up. Alright, so we're going to add just more bright neutral gray into that for these straps here. And just paint this on the more raised, closer to the highlight, or to the upper portion of it, just to show some highlights on it. Get in here real close so I don't get paint anywhere else. There's very thin lines and hash marks just to show the texture here. You're probably getting tired of me saying that. Alright. Okay, and now we're going to go back to our dark wash. Make it a little bit darker. Thin it down some. It's just that blue-black with some black in it, and just kind of do our outline here. Just separate the areas, just to darken up the shadows a bit more. Help give it contrast. I'll also do this here on some of the leather of his belt, just to kind of deepen it in. So just the underneath it, so just help redefining that shadow. Sometimes when you're highlighting you get a bit too bright, so you need to go back in with your shadows, your shadow colors, and just darken them up a bit more. Alright, Haku, have a good one. I'm finishing them up. I had to put a sealant glue on the base, so I'll have to do that off camera. But I will talk to you soon. Have a good one. So I'm also going to use this color to kind of darken the ropes here. So let's finish up the ropes. I think we'll call it done. And I might go back and kind of highlight that up a bit more on the back. I don't know, we'll see. Sometimes when I think I'm done, I'll go back and I'll look at it and might spend another 30 minutes or so adding a little more highlights, stuff that I miss, some darker shadows. Okay. And I'm mixing up a color here for my rope. Alright, that looks rather ropey color. So it's a little bit of the dark golden brown, some golden brown, some yellow ochre, and then some of the mahogany that I had on here. And here we have the sculpt of the rope braid, so just hitting the raised areas, keeping it more towards the top with this color. And I'm completely off camera, sorry about that, folks. So I'm just hitting the raised, upper portion, keeping that dark shadow on the lower part of it. So treating each section of the rope as its own highlight, shadow. So just the upper portion of the area that's getting this. So about halfway up, the upper halfway, the upper half, I should say. Dragging the brush across so I can just catch that top portion of it. And if I need to darken, I got too much of a bright highlight on there, I lost my shadows, just go back with your shadow color and just do the lower half of it. Or if you want to make it a little bit darker, just do the lower half. And that's how you do on pretty much on all the things. You're building up your highlights, halfway up, and then half of that, and then half of that as you get closer and closer to the top. Alright, so now we're going to add some of that ivory into it. Very bright yellowish brown here. And this is just very small dots at the very top of the area. And I'm not going all the way around because some of this is in shadow underneath here. Like this part. It's in shadow of his palm. So we'll do a little bit here on the back, just very small dots, but we'll add another bright or highlight on the front. So we'll add, be more ivory than anything else, very bright. And just very small dots right here on the knot. Okay. And now we'll go in with our wash, our dark shadow. And kind of help reestablish that darkness underneath it. Help separate some of the bits of rope. And do a line in between that and the gray. So underneath the knot, where it's overhanging, just adding some more shadow. Alright, let's push all this stuff up from behind it. Alright. He looks awesome. I'm very pleased with him. Looking cool. So what I'll do, like I said, I'll wait for that glue. It's still kind of wet in spots. I'll let that dry, and I'll do some of that, you know, neutral brown colors, very similar to the, not quite as bright as the wood, but just those natural brown tones, the neutrals. It's kind of more in the middle, not so much red, not so much yellow on the base, and then we'll add some static grass, some grass and some shrubs, and we'll paint the rim. So I'm gonna have to wait for that glue to dry, and I'll do that later tonight, and then we posting it on all my social media stuff. So thank you all for stopping in on this Monday, Miniature Monday. I want to thank everyone for stopping in and chatting. Thank you. I had a wonderful time. If you haven't already and you'd love to keep up on when I stream nets, please click on that follow or even that subscription button down below. It does help the channel and helps me produce more wonderful videos. Also, if you are on any of the social media, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the links are all down below. It's basically at Hope Mini Paint. So, or just look up Hope Miniature Painting. Casey Holt. I'm Casey. So check on those. You can see a lot of my previous work that I'm doing, a lot of keep up to date what I'm doing, and work in progress and things like that. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye now. Also, hold on a minute, and we'll go see if we'll go raid someone. Forgot all about that. Who shall we go do? Let's see here. We'll go and Brush for Hire is still painting, so we'll go over there. Beef in the hole. All right, we're gonna go raid Brush for Hire. A wonderful painter, great teacher. Give him some love. Oops. See if I type this in right. Raid Brush for Hire. All right. On our way. So stick around. Go show him some love. Ask him a bunch of questions on how to paint, because he will be more than happy to show you. Did this work? It's not showing if it worked. Twitch. What's going on here? Alright. Let's try this again, shall we? I'm good at some time. Alright, hold on. Make sure I'm spelling his thing right. Yeah. Why is this not working? Don't. Ah, stupid computer. Well, hopefully it'll work. All right. Okay, everyone. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.